Deep in the frozen outskirts of Kazan, Russia, a young woman is forced to stand naked in a room full of strangers. This isn't a crime. It's the first day of class. She is a recruit for Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, Sluzba Vynashnaya Razvedki, or SVR's Swallow program, a state-sponsored factory designed to strip away every ounce of human shame. While the world watches satellites and cyber warfare, Moscow is perfecting a much older and much deadlier weapon. It's called sex warfare. By the time she graduates, her original identity will be a ghost. She will be a master of identity disassociation, able to simulate love, empathy, and absolute devotion on command, while her heart remains as cold as a Siberian winter. Her target isn't a soldier. It's a lonely $150,000 a year software engineer with admin access, or a Silicon Valley CEO looking for a soulmate at a tech mixer. This isn't just about secrets in a bedroom. It is a $600 billion annual drain on the American economy. A heist where the loot isn't gold, it's your trust. To understand how these ghosts conquered the West, we have to enter the cold factory, where the SVR breaks a human soul just to build the perfect lie. Most people think seduction is an art. The SVR knows it's a protocol. And like any protocol, it requires a controlled environment. Enter the Kazan facility, the SVR's premier laboratory for social engineering. This isn't a school for assassins. A dead target is a useless target. Instead, this is a deconstruction plant for the human ego. The process begins with the ego strip. Recruits are isolated and forced to recount every sexual and emotional trauma they've ever experienced. They do this in front of a panel of senior officers who record every word. The goal is to weaponize the recruit's own shame until it no longer exists. Once the person is broken, the SVR installs the technical mechanism of reflexive control. This is a Soviet-era psychological tactic designed to feed a target specific information so that the target makes a decision that benefits Russia, while believing it was their own idea. Swallows spend 12 hours a day in the lab, watching surveillance footage of high-value targets. They aren't looking for a vibe. They are looking for the payload entry point. Is the target lonely? Is he arrogant? Does he feel undervalued by his wife or his board of directors? The Swallow is trained to become the exact missing piece of that target's life. They learn to mimic the target's speech patterns, their political leanings, and their hidden fetishes. It is a total hijacking of human empathy. They aren't trained to pull a trigger. They are trained to make a CEO want to show them his company's most sensitive server. And in 2010, the FBI realized this protocol had moved from the classroom to the American suburbs. On June 27, 2010, the FBI kicked down doors across America. They didn't find tactile gear, sniper rifles, or cyanide pills. They found minivans, unpaid mortgages, and PTA meeting schedules. They arrested 10 suburban Americans, but none of them were actually American. They were deep cover assets of the SVR's illegals program. The media immediately obsessed over one of them, a 28-year-old Manhattan real estate agent named Anna Chapman. The public laughed because she hadn't stolen a single classified document. But the FBI wasn't laughing, because they understood the technical mechanism of a spotter. Chapman wasn't a thief. She was a network architect. She was executing a decades-long protocol called legend building. A legend is a bulletproof, state-funded fake life designed to withstand FBI audits. The SVR bought her a $2 million penthouse and a high-end business. Why? Because elite real estate gave her unrestricted access to America's power brokers. She wasn't hunting for blueprints. She was hunting for access vectors. A lonely hedge fund manager, a disgruntled telecom executive, a vulnerable senator. And her communication methods were terrifyingly modern. No invisible ink, no secret handshakes. She used an encrypted ad hoc Wi-Fi network. Chapman would sit in a crowded Starbucks sipping a latte. A Russian handler would drive past the window in a nondescript minivan. In exactly 1.5 seconds, her hidden laptop would automatically ping his router. A massive encrypted data transfer would happen before the car even hit a red light. A digital dead drop hiding in plain sight. Ultimately, a Russian defector burned the network, and the US deported all 10 spies. The media declared that the Cold War was officially over. But the SVR didn't see a defeat. They saw a beta test. They analyzed Chapman's failure and realized Washington, D.C. was too slow and too guarded. They needed a target with billions of dollars, global influence, and zero government security protocols. So they packed up their swallows and bought first-class tickets to California. A major tech giant will spend $50 million a year on cybersecurity. They use biometric locks, armed guards, and military-grade firewalls. But the SVR knows a fundamental truth about security. You don't need to hack a server if you can just manipulate the person holding the password. And Silicon Valley is packed with brilliant, yet emotionally isolated targets. Sleep-deprived engineers holding the keys to billion-dollar algorithms. This is where the SVR executes the technical mechanism of ecosystem camouflage. Modern swallows do not walk into hotel bars wearing red dresses. They infiltrate Palo Alto coffee shops wearing Patagonia vests. They engineer legends as Stanford alumni, angel investors, and Web3 developers. They don't offer sex, they offer validation. A swallow will research a 28-year-old startup founder for 6 months. She will accidentally bump into him at an invite-only VIP camp at Burning Man. She will perfectly mirror his niche obsessions and pitch a fake $10 million seed round. Once inside his inner circle, the trap closes. Sometimes she claims she needs to review his source code to finalize the funding. Other times, she plays the role of the perfect devoted girlfriend. She builds a bond so deep, he never questions her loyalty, which allows her to quietly plug an infected drive into his laptop while he sleeps. A laptop connected directly to a defense contractor's mainframe. The financial bleeding is catastrophic. According to national security estimates, intellectual property theft drains $600 billion from the US economy every single year. $600 billion. That is the equivalent of quietly stealing the entire GDP of Sweden annually. And a massive chunk of that hemorrhage is facilitated by weaponized intimacy. The SVR discovered that the fastest way to bypass a corporate firewall is to simply take the man holding the password out for an expensive dinner. It is a flawless, invisible system. Or at least, it was. Because in early 2026, the curtain was violently ripped back, and an entire modern espionage network was exposed by a single bizarre text message. In early 2026, the Department of Justice caught a Russian spy, Noma Zarubina, operating in New York. When the public hears female Russian spy, they immediately picture Hollywood movies. They expect a supermodel in a backless dress, sipping a martini and carrying a silenced pistol. But the media immediately treated the Zarubina bust like a joke. The operative didn't look dangerous or sophisticated at all. She looked like a desperate, cringe-inducing amateur. In one leaked exchange, she tried to build rapport with a new contact. She sent him a selfie wearing a cowboy hat, holding a glass of wine with the caption, What she didn't know was that this specific contact was an undercover FBI agent. To the public, the text message was pathetic and clumsy. But counterintelligence experts will tell you that clumsiness is a calculated weapon. It exposes the technical mechanism of the low-level entry. The SVR knows that highly successful paranoid men have their guard up against aggressive, hyper-competent women. But a quirky, slightly clueless girl next door, that slips right past their psychological firewalls and triggers a biological savior complex. By intentionally playing the fool and asking for small, innocent favors, the operative builds a subconscious debt of intimacy. When Zarubina deployed this tactic against her actual targets, New York executives and power brokers, they felt dominant, smart, and completely in control. But while those men were laughing at her cowboy hat selfies, Zarubina was bleeding their networks dry. She wasn't just a quirky girl on a phone. She was operating a high-end massage parlor as a fully funded intelligence front, a black site specifically designed to isolate, record, and compromise the city's elite. By the time her real victims realized the clumsy amateur was actually a human wiretap, the SVR already possessed the compromat to vaporize their marriages, their careers, and their net worth. That fateful text to the FBI agent finally brought her down, leading to a quiet plea deal in early 2026. The media treated it like a bizarre, isolated incident, but intelligence insiders know the terrifying truth about the Zarubina bust. She was a massive success right up until the moment she wasn't. She was just the one who got caught. And for every swallow burning in a federal courtroom, there are 100 more still operating in the shadows. America spends hundreds of billions of dollars building digital fortresses. We use quantum encryption, biometric vaults, and AI threat detection. But Moscow isn't trying to outsmart our software. They know you don't need a supercomputer to bypass the corporate firewall. You just need to hack the one component that doesn't have an antivirus: human emotion. Silicon Valley is losing the sex war because they fundamentally misunderstand the battlefield. A compromised target doesn't just hand over a simple password. They willingly grant backdoor administrator access to proprietary source code. They blind sign vendor contracts that quietly siphon off their company's intellectual property. The Red Swallows aren't a myth gathering dust in the KGB archives. They are a living, breathing virus currently infecting the highest levels of American tech. So, if you're a founder in Palo Alto, and you suddenly meet the absolute perfect partner, someone who flawlessly mirrors your niche interests and understands your deepest insecurities, don't ask yourself if you just got lucky. Ask yourself what you have that a foreign intelligence agency might want. Because the most terrifying truth about the modern honey trap isn't that they steal your life's work. It's that they make you feel like it was your idea to give it away.